Child of the Wolves, Chapter 4. Life in the Human's Box. The human box puzzled Granite. There was no straw inside it. It was enormous, with solid walls and a smooth, shiny floor. The walls were many puppy leaps apart, and the floor was so slippery that his claws skittered across it. Each time Granite tried to walk, he fell on his face. He yelped, but nothing happened. He yelped again. Kate heard his cries and pushed a gray box with a wire gate into a corner of the room. She dropped the pups into the box and fastened the gate. The floor was strewn with fresh straw. The close walls made Granite and Digger feel safer, but Nugget and Cricket began to cry. Granite licked Cricket's and Nugget's noses to comfort them, but he still felt bad inside. He longed to be back in the kennel, curled up beside Sepala's warm body. After a time, the whimpers stopped. The room grew quiet. Then Digger got up and began to chew on the gate. To get his teeth around the wire, he had to draw back his lips. He looked so funny that Kate laughed. The door banged, and the pups were alone. Granite kept watch for the humans, but it was so warm that his eyes kept closing. Before long, he was fast asleep. The sound of boots on the shiny floor woke him up. Digger was standing at the gate, whining softly. Nugget and Cricket were still asleep. Granite smelled warm milk, and his heart gave a little leap. He looked around for Sepala, but saw only the broad stretch of floor and Kate's legs in blue jeans. "Time for dinner," she announced. "Maybe a bottle will make you babies feel better." She opened the gate and pulled Digger into her lap. Granite peered through the wire and watched her stick a nipple into his brother's mouth. The nipple was attached to a bottle filled with milk. First, Digger tried to chew on it, but some of the milk dripped onto his tongue. He began to suck greedily and soon emptied the bottle. When it was Granite's turn, he knew what to do. As the warm milk ran into his mouth, he swallowed as fast as he could. Kate's arm was around him, and she held him close. Granite felt safe again, but still longed for his mother. After Cricket and Nugget ate, Kate left. It grew dark. Granite put his muzzle on Cricket's shoulder and tucked his feet into the warmth beneath Digger's belly. Nugget whimpered and scooted as close to the other pups as he could. For a time, they slept. The next morning, the pups ate oatmeal mixed with eggs, honey, meat, and milk. It tasted good and warmed their stomachs, but it was not the same. They missed being held close. When the oatmeal was gone, the pups went out to practice pulling hay. It was a soft spring day. With a flash of yellow, a small bird flitted overhead and perched on a willow bush. A squirrel ran up a large spruce tree. Across the lake, a mother caribou picked her way down to the water, her newborn calf trailing behind her. Kate knelt to put a harness on Digger. Her back was toward Granite. He slipped away and ran for the kennels as fast as he could go. All the pens looked alike. He couldn't tell which one held his mother. Down the row he ran, yelping for Sepala. A dog answered his cries, but it was not his mother. Granite rounded the corner and ran into Tim. The pup tumbled head over heels. It knocked the breath out of him. Before he could get on his feet, Tim grabbed him. The pup squealed and tried to squirm out of Tim's grasp, but his hands were big and strong. He tried to nip Tim's fingers, but Tim only laughed. "Where do you think you're going?" he boomed. "I'll bet you're looking for Seppala. Poor little lonesome pup." Tim carried Granite halfway down the pens and held him so he could see inside. Seppala was curled up in her box, fast asleep. Granite yelped, making as much noise as he could. He wanted to be next to his mother. One eye opened, but Seppala didn't raise her head. She sighed and closed her eye. As he petted Granite, Tim made soft sounds. He could tell that the pup wanted his mother. Granite quieted and licked Tim's hand. "Satisfied?" said Tim. Then he took Granite back to the other pups and helped harness him for the hay pull. A gray jay glided onto a nearby branch. It tilted its white head to one side and watched closely as Granite trotted from one human to the other. We are," it called as Kate handed over a morsel of meat. "Be careful," called Tim. "That camp robber has its eye on the meat." "There's plenty to spare," said Kate, and tossed a piece out on the grass. The jay peered at the meat and squawked again. Then, as Kate turned away to snap the lead on Granite's harness, it swooped down, snatched the meat, and was gone in an instant. After the lessons, the pups went back to their cage. That afternoon, Tim and Kate put a low fence in one corner of the kitchen, where the pups could scamper about and roll in the straw. Before they left, Tim dropped a thick knot of rope inside the fence. The pups fought over who would play with it. Digger grabbed one end, and Granite fastened his teeth in the other. Digger pulled, but Granite pulled just as hard. Granite braced himself with his front paws and jerked hard, just as Digger relaxed his grip. Granite tumbled back and found himself staring at the ceiling. He yelped happily and shook the rope. Digger raced over and grabbed the rope again, and another game began. Only Nugget refused to play tug of war. He was so small that he could never win. Nugget's favorite toy was the water pan, which no one tried to take away. He liked to dabble his paws in the water and shove the pan with his nose. Nugget's water game ended when the pan overturned and water spread across the floor. Each time, Kate found the empty pan and the puddles. She made unhappy sounds. The days passed. Before long, the pups were pulling twice as much hay. Granite didn't enjoy it, but it made Kate and Tim so happy that he worked as hard as Digger and Cricket. All the pups missed their mother. Nugget cried himself to sleep every night. Granite felt like it, but choked back the whimpers. Instead, he tried to comfort Nugget and Cricket. Digger never cried, but sometimes stood sadly at the fence, his head hanging so low it touched the straw. The morning the pups had their first meal of kibble, they left the big house. After lessons, they went back to the kennel. Seppala waited for them, running back and forth behind the gate and whining. She was thin, but her welcoming bark was as loud as ever. Tim opened the gate and the pups ran to her. In their eagerness, Cricket and Nugget and Granite tumbled over their feet. Haughty Digger brought up the rear. Seppala licked their noses, sending messages of love. Then she caught Tim's gaze and scolded him for keeping her children so long. He seemed to understand her howls and barks because he apologized. After he left, Seppala bathed each pup, washing the human smell off their fur. When she ran her tongue over him, Digger forgot his pride and whimpered like a tiny puppy. By the time the pups began to play, Digger's pride was restored. He bounced across the ground and leaped on Granite, pushing him flat. Granite was so happy to be back with his mother that he paid no attention. Instead of scrambling to his feet, Granite let Digger hold him down. Digger's blue eyes sparkled and he strutted around the yard, holding his tail like a banner. He strutted until the pups snuggled up beside Seppala for their best sleep in weeks.